Mr. President, honourable members, let me start by expressing my thanks for the opportunity to discuss with you today the main elements of the joint way forward on migration issues. This document was signed on the 2nd of October between Afghanistan and the European Union. It should be seen not only in the context of the EU-Afghan relations, but more importantly, in the context of the European Union's new partnership framework with third countries under the European Agenda on Migration. This initiative falls under the package of efforts to address the ongoing migratory crisis and was welcomed by the last European Council. More than a year ago, we adopted, as you all remember, the European Union's Agenda on Migration, which this House has welcomed. The EU Agenda on Migration has set out our common strategy on the basis of this principle. A common challenge demands a common European response. It demands a comprehensive policy which includes both short and long-term solutions and a coordinated approach of our internal and external policies in order to address all aspects of this phenomenon. Preventing the irregular migration is one of the issues that demand a long-term policy and engagements with key third countries. Our engagement, therefore, with Afghanistan, along with other key countries of origin, is part of this comprehensive approach. It is in this spirit that the European Union and Afghanistan have decided to bring their cooperation to the next level. Let me stress the overall picture. Europe has faced an unprecedented big number of irregular migrants of Afghan origin in 2015, and during 2016, Afghans continue to represent the second largest group of irregular migrants to the European Union. A large part of them will most likely be eligible for international protection, either because they belong to specific categories of persons or because they are originating from certain areas of the country. I don't have to repeat that every asylum seeker goes through a due and fair process respecting her or his rights according to EU laws. Those who will be not eligible to international protection will have to be returned. And this is exactly the issue which is required to be addressed with the Afghan authorities. The Afghan authorities do not contest the international law principle of readmitting their nationals found in an irregular position. They are, however, concerned for the impact of their return for those who return and for their receiving communities as well. This issue has to be adequately and proactively managed. Their concern, which the European Union shares, is moreover amplified by the fact that other neighbouring countries, notably Pakistan and Iran, are already returning thousands of irregular Afghan migrants back to Afghanistan. These returns are happening without any accompanying measure in favour of those who return and of the communities that will receive and reintegrate them. Until the 2nd of October, the European Union did not have any cooperation framework with Afghanistan. This situation had created mistrust, with limited possibilities for dialogue and cooperation, but also incertitude for the migrants. The only ones profiting of the lack of cooperation framework were the criminal organisations dealing with migrant smuggling. Now we have this framework for dialogue and cooperation to discuss the issues of return, readmission and reintegration of the irregular migrants in a comprehensive, balanced and sustainable manner. This will also help to address the concerns of the Afghan authorities I mentioned before. I would like to give you now an overview of what the joint way forward is and what it is not, and what its key elements are. Let me start by reminding that the joint way forward does not refer to persons having been granted international protection status in the European Union, or whose international protection request is still being examined. It only covers the irregular migrants, persons who either have not requested asylum or whose asylum claim has been rejected and they have no right to stay in the European Union. In all cases, the principle of non-refoulement will be preserved and respected. Secondly, the joint way forward is not a legally binding international agreement. It does not set out new obligations. It represents rather a joint declaration in which are described the various initiatives which the European Union and Afghanistan, in accordance with their authority and internal procedures, intend to implement in order to organise the return, readmission and reintegration of the irregular migrants while preventing further irregular migration flows. This declaration will enhance the mutual trust between the two parties. It proves that both the European Union and Afghanistan are committed to address the irregular migration phenomenon in a comprehensive, balanced and human manner. Thirdly, I would like to underline that the joint way forward goes in fact much beyond the return of irregular migrants. It does not only describe how Member States and Afghan authorities will organise an orderly return of the irregular migrants. It encompasses several other initiatives helping to give to this challenge a sustainable solution in a spirit of partnership. For instance, it also covers measures aimed at preventing further departures of irregular migrants, such as campaigns to sensitise the population to the risk of irregular migration and capacity building to fight against migrant smuggling. It also underlines that, in line with the EU legislation, the EU side will give the necessary consideration to humanitarian aspects to ensure that vulnerable groups of migrants receive adequate protection, assistance and care throughout the whole process. In this context, the joint way forward stresses the intention of the European Union to support the country as much as possible with the challenging task of sustainable reintegration of those who return. As mentioned earlier, Afghanistan is facing unprecedented migration challenges. It is in this spirit that the Commission is developing an important multi-country programme to assist returning migrants, members of third communities and the local authorities. The interventions foreseen under this programme will include vocational training and skills development, strengthening of local communities, and improvement of the migration management systems and policies. This programme comes in addition to the existing bilateral development cooperation, which addresses some of the root causes of irregular migration, for example, as concerns the availability of basic services or economic opportunities. It represents just one aspect of the much broader financial and technical support which the European Union and its member states have been giving, and as reiterated at the Brussels conference of 5 October, will continue to give to Afghanistan to promote its overall stabilisation and development. Mr. President, honourable members, the joint way forward represents the beginning of a dialogue and cooperation for the European Union and the Member States with the Afghan authorities. Nothing should be given for granted. Passionate work and mutual respect in a spirit of partnership will ensure the effective success of the initiatives described in the joint way forward. Now, from the Commission side, I can assure you our full commitment to make the joint way forward a success story with a positive outcome for the European Union, for Afghanistan, and in particular for the Afghani migrants involved. And I can conclude by reassuring you that I am committed to come and inform you on the state of play of the joint way forward whenever you will request it in the future. Thank you very much for your interventions. They were all very useful and to the point. I also take duly notice of all your remarks and recommendations. I would like to conclude by inviting you once more time to look at the joint way forward in a positive light, to look at it as a tool which, although having only the modest status of a mere joint declaration, can contribute to start a dialogue and cooperation between the European Union and Afghanistan in migration issues. It will serve as a bridge of provisional nature, allowing the two sides to meet and discuss, to start practical work and to build their mutual trust in addressing common challenges. I took note of what Ms. Björk said before. Any decision regarding a possible return of children is based on an individual assessment of best interest of the child, according to the provisions of relevant EU legislation. I remind you that the Return Directive. IOM has established systems of referral and support. The unaccompanied minors who will be returned to Afghanistan will be assisted in the framework of the EU-funded reintegration project by the Afghan authorities and the IOM, Kabul, who has already put in place an effective referral and support system. In 2016, only a very low percentage of voluntary returnees from Europe were unaccompanied minors. As I already stressed, the non-legally binding nature of the joint way forward gives us no guarantee that its provisions will be effectively implemented by the Afghani authorities. The situation of the country remains difficult at all levels, and yes, we have to exhaust all means in order to bring back peace and stability in the region. It remains one of the priorities of the European Union. But the poverty, instability, the insecurity, and now also the emergency created by the massive return of migrants from Pakistan and Iran will make its implementation challenging. This being said, I believe that the European Union and the Member States should do their best to support the Afghani authorities to cooperate on the basis of the joint way forward. Should this cooperation work, it will represent an effective game changer, not only because it would help solving one of the key challenges for Europe, namely the return of irregular migrants and the prevention of further arrivals of irregular migrants, but most importantly, because it would have a positive impact on the Afghan society by enhancing its capacity to provide assistance to the returnees and their receiving communities, and by supporting those deciding not to emigrate from the country, to build up for themselves brighter opportunities at home. From the Commission side, I conclude by reiterating once more time our full commitment to make the joint way forward a success story, but also to come and inform you on its implementation whenever you will request it in the future.